Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? Chris here from Fake Sports News, back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be going over what to expect this weekend at the upcoming Florida Mutineers online home series. Wow, that was a mouthful. Okay, so before I start talking about today's upcoming event, I'm going to give you guys a quick TLDR of what happened at the last event, just kind of going team by team, saying who performed well, who performed badly, etc., etc. So, of course, we'll start off with the two LA teams. Both of them got farmed for points. Optic got farmed, of course, as they normally do, and LA Gorillas, they escaped with 10 points, but they ultimately gave the Surge 20 more Gorilla points, which I believe made the Surge's total for the season 40 LA Gorilla points. So the LA teams underperformed as they have been all season. In terms of the well-established teams, our two underperformers were the London Royal Ravens and, of course, the Chicago Huntsmen. Chicago, of course, they've been a top 3 team all year long consistently, and this event they really looked pretty shaky. They lost their opening matchup to New York, and then, of course, in their matchup against the Dallas Empire, they got smoked 3-0. It wasn't even close. So Chicago and London are the two teams I'm looking to rebound. Of course, London rebounding this event, Chicago rebounding next event. In terms of teams that played really, really well at the last event, we had the Seattle Surge, of course, and the New York Subliners. Both teams really came through, and they proved that they're getting better. Of course, New York Subliners, they beat Chicago Huntsmen, so that means they can beat top-tier teams. And this was a really big showing for them. Of course, they really needed to get some points on the board. They were stuck at 10 points coming into the event, so now they have 20. And I see them picking up another 10 to 20 this weekend, realistically. They have a relatively easy group. So the Subliners, of course, they looked a lot better in S&D. They looked a lot better in Hardpoint. And they looked a lot better in Dom. Of course, in the case of the Surge, they've always been a pretty good Dom team. And they really improved their Hardpoint. And their S&D is looking a lot better, too. So they really turned things around. And then, of course, we had our two top dogs at the event, the Dallas Empire and Atlanta FaZe. Of course, the Empire did indeed strike back. They won their second event of the year, first team to do so. And Atlanta FaZe, they had some struggles last weekend, so kind of a write-off. They didn't really play well at all last weekend. In the London match, they looked really shaky. London almost beat them on all 3 maps. It was really a close 3-0. So I don't know. I think they'll go back to the lab. I think they've gone back to the lab at this point, and I think they've fixed their mistakes, and they'll come out frying this weekend. And I honestly think they'll win the event. Now, looking ahead to this weekend's matches, of course, I posted my bracket on the screen. You guys can follow along with my bracket this weekend. This is how I think things will turn out, but obviously if things change, just stay tuned to my Twitter, my Instagram, etc. I will be giving out my calls on there, and you guys can pivot with me as the weekend progresses. Of course, looking ahead to Friday, in our opening match, we're going to see the Paris Legion taking on Atlanta FaZe. I'm expecting Atlanta to make quick work of Paris. Paris has been struggling in scrims. They haven't really shown any improvement lately, and I believe they just switched Dens to a sub from an AR, so we'll see how that turns out. A role switch right before an event is usually not a great sign for a team, so I'm expecting a 3-0 victory for FaZe. And because of that, I'm betting minus 1.5 on FaZe Clan to win the series. So I would definitely suggest you do the same and parlay that. But more on that in a second. Just right now, get FaZe negative 1.5 in your betting slip. Of course, looking ahead to our next matchup, we'll have the London Royal Ravens taking on Optic Gaming LA. Personally, I think this is going to end in a pretty quick 3-0. So for that reason, I recommend that you take the London Royal Ravens at minus 1.5 to win the series. Of course, Optic Gaming LA, they recently made a roster change. They subbed JCap out for Chino, who was one of their substitute players. And recently in scrims, they haven't been looking very good. They've lost to amateur teams, and at one point in scrims, I heard they were running 3 ARs. If you guys didn't know, the game is currently in a 1 AR meta, so running 3 ARs is just going to make you terribly slow, and it's not going to work out in this game. For that reason, I say Optic Gaming is going to get 3-0 by the London Royal Ravens, and it's pretty safe. Of course, in our next matchup, we'll see the New York Subliners taking on the Toronto Ultra. Honestly, I expect this to be another 3-0, maybe a 3-1 at the worst if Toronto steal the Dom. Of course, I see New York taking the hardpoint and the S&D pretty convincingly. New York has looked fantastic in hardpoint. They were 4-1 against FaZe and Huntsman, two of the best teams in the game. FaZe, of course, was the number 1 hardpoint team without a doubt for a long time. So beating them on both hardpoints was very, very, very impressive. And honestly, I think that the New York Subliners, I think they'll keep that momentum going this weekend. I think they'll get to the semis, definitely. And I think they'll look great. But the only thing that worries me is Toronto is a very strong Dom team. So For that reason, I say take New York at minus 1.5. They could lose a map. I don't see them losing two. Of course, in our marquee matchup for the day, we have the Minnesota Rocker taking on the Florida Mutineers. I think the Florida Mutineers take this series. I'm not too sure what the scoreline will be. I'm leaning towards a 3-1, but it's a little bit risky of a bet because both teams are so strong and anything can happen in this series. I think that the Mutineers have what it takes to close it out, though. I think they're a great search team. Obviously, their respawn speaks for itself. Their dominations are really good. Very strong domination team. The Rocker, of course, they're a top 5 team currently. They've made it to many grand finals. They just haven't won one yet. So I wouldn't count them out either. But personally, I'm favoring the Mutineers. They've been looking better in online scrims, and overall, they just look to be a better online team than the Minnesota Rocker. So that's the reason why I advise you guys to bet on the Mutineers, just with a moneyline win. So just so we're clear, what I'm doing today is minus 1.5 for Atlanta FaZe, the London Royal Ravens, and the New York Subliners. Take minus 1.5 for all three of those teams in your parlay, and then take money line for the Florida Mutineers, and then you'll be betting with me. Hopefully we'll make some money today. I think this is pretty locked in. Honestly, I don't see these bets not hitting today. Minus 1.5 for all these teams on a Friday is very safe, and Florida Mutineers winning is pretty safe too. Of course, they won the last event they competed at. So, and they played Minnesota Rocker, so there's that too. So for that reason, I suggest those bets. Of course, going ahead, you guys can see my entire bracket on the screen now, and you can bet accordingly throughout the rest of the weekend. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm not going to necessarily make these updates too long nowadays. Just going to give you guys quick updates going into Friday, and then stay tuned to social media for the rest of the weekend. After the weekend, we'll have a weekend recap, and yeah, that's just about it. But anyways, guys, I'm going to head on out of here. This has been Chris once again from Fake Sports News. I hope you guys enjoy the Call of Duty action this weekend, and I'll catch you next week with a recap video. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. Hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night, wherever you may be on this beautiful planet. I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.